Four final questions with Dr. Russell Clayton as we round the bases. And the first one, you just talked about small ball and maybe eating the right thing over the wrong thing. So that'll lead me to my first question. You completed the Krispy Kreme challenge, which I don't know if that falls under small ball, but tell me about that.
I ate the wrong thing that day. I saw this thing about Krispy Kreme challenge on Sports Center years ago. And I lived nowhere near North Carolina, so I couldn't participate in it because they do it at NC State on their campus. And ironically, all the proceeds go to the Children's Hospital. So there's this sugar-filled run, and the money goes to the Children's Hospital. But lo and behold, later in life, I found myself living in North Carolina as my first academic appointment. So I said, I'm going to do this Krispy Kreme challenge. I was in a former life, I was a runner, did a couple of marathons. So the running part I had. And then to this day, I'm still a donut person and sometimes make that wrong decision and have a couple or four donuts. So I had that down. I thought, let's put that together. So you're 2.5 miles out, eat the dozen donuts, Krispy Kreme, 2.5 miles back. And the challenge is to keep it down. I'm happy to say I kept it down. Me and my buddies that did it, we kept it down. The 2.5 miles out was much quicker than the 2.5 miles back.
I can only imagine.
But we made it. We struggled on the way back, but we made it. And I got a T-shirt that is nowhere to be found, and a good memory from it. In fact, on my desktop here, I have a little icon that's a picture of us that I pull up sometimes when I'm doing workshops, and I show it to people on Teams or Zoom. So it was a blast. It was a blast. It was unique.
I don't think I can make it 2 steps after eating a dozen donuts, let alone 2.5 miles, but you did it. So
I did it.
Check. Never needs to be done again. All right. Second question as we round the bases. Let's stick in the food theme, so to speak. When I was down in Tampa for the Royals and Rays, you gave me some very strong coffee suggestions. Well, the coffee was strong, but the suggestion was really strong and a really good one too. I love that because I'm an anti-Starbucks guy, just like I would be an anti-McDonald's guy or whatever it is if I've got the chance to do something local or something that I'm not going to get back at home. And that's true here at home as well. If I can not just support local, but try something different, I like to do that. So you gave me some good suggestions, but you're getting some experience in this as well. A little bit of a side hustle, Coastal Coffee. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah. So I am a coffee junkie. The whole podcast, I've been drinking cold brew coffee. So I don't even know when it began, but I've drugged my wife all over this country to different coffee shops, and she's a good sport about it. And I'm just like you. I've had my fair share of Starbucks, but I love the local. So Coastal Coffee is my attempt to enter the coffee space, which is a crowded market. But I work with a local roaster here in the Tampa Bay in the north suburbs, and he has a killer Colombian bean that he roasts to a medium level. I've had Colombian coffee all over the country, but the way he does it is phenomenal. And so I'm partnering with him to take this into the e-commerce space. And I mean, this is, all joking aside, this is the bean that made me think I've got to get this out to the world, so to speak. So I'm excited. We're almost ready to launch. We'll start with whole bean. Then we're going to do some cold brew pouches that are easy on the consumer to just drop down into water. You let it steep for 12 to 24 hours. Voila, you have a fantastic cold brew, because in Florida it's so hot that we drink a lot of cold coffee, and actually nationwide, cold coffee is out spending the hot coffee, especially in the summer. So yeah, that's Coastal Coffee in a nutshell. And we're also going to work on branding in terms of making it, a fun brand. So there'll be some cool merchandise, some stickers. some shirts. The most recent piece I've worked on, we've got a skeleton sitting under a palm tree drinking coffee. So it's going to be a fun brand, coastal Florida themed, as you can imagine. So I'm really excited about it. Right now, it hasn't earned me a dime, and in fact, it's cost me a dime. But it's fulfilling and it's fun, and I'm looking forward to pressing launch and getting that out there for my friends and family and colleagues to see and to hopefully share the message.
All right, so professor, consulting, you're now in the coffee business, and I know a lot more too. The third question that I wanted to ask you, and you talked about some of the writing before and where you've been published, but you also, I know, wrote an ebook called Walt and Well-Being, Well-Being Through the Lens of Walt Disney. That sounds really interesting to me, in part because I think a lot of people go back to Walt Disney and say, you know what, this is, I mean, I had the CEO and founder of the Savannah Bananas on, and he pushes back on being the Harlem Globetrotters. He likes more of a comparison to Walt Disney because of the way Disney wanted to listen to what people wanted and was willing to reinvent and do anything. And so I do think that there are elements that we all can relate to with Walt Disney, in part because we've known the Disney brand pretty much since the beginning of time, right? Since we can remember as young children. Tell me about this ebook.
Yeah, we talked earlier, Joel, about my swing and miss with my full book, and what I learned from that. Well, I learned that I could write, and so we as a family, we're pretty big Disney fans. So we're pretty local here. We're near Orlando, so we go a lot. We spend a lot of time at Disney, and every time we go, it's really hard for me to take off my professor hat, my consultant hat. So I'm constantly, although I'm having a blast as a person, as a father, as a husband, I'm also looking through that lens of academia and consulting and what can this bring to the workplace. And, while Disney has done things wrong in history and they by and large have been a great, great, great employer for people. They by and large, and he as a person, so I look at it as Disney as a company and Disney as a person. Both have done really great things throughout the course of their time. And so I thought, you know what? I want to put together just a small ebook. I give it away. There's an option where someone can drop in $1 if they want to, but by and large, it's just given away. I just want the idea out there. And the story that inspired me is that I talk about in there that comes back to the soft skill of resilience, is Walt getting his original intellectual property stolen from him and what he did from there. Everybody knows Mickey Mouse, but people don't always know about Oswald. How Oswald was essentially, at that point in time, it was pretty easy to steal intellectual property, and they just took it right out from under him. So he could have folded up, but he didn't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, really good stuff there. Last one, the walk-off, and I'll make this sort of a baseball question because I do think it's fascinating. And as a sports fan, as a baseball fan, as someone that lives in the Tampa Bay area, I think that there's so much, even in what you teach in the Tampa Bay Rays, because in a small market that is continuously successful, that cannot afford to get the big names, they have to get almost everything right. And a lot of that is the soft skills, and it's more too. I think they evaluate, or they do something different than almost anyone else does. Do you have any feel for, like, we talk so much about Moneyball and we just equate it to the Oakland A's,
right,
or Taking Walks, and everybody saw the movie. But I think that there's always a new version of Moneyball in any profession, looking for the market inequities and trying to find ways to do things differently that maybe isn't valued as much. Is there something that can be learned from the Tampa Bay Rays?
Yeah, while they're certainly doing the data analytics thing, right? Where and a lot of teams are doing that, right? We even have, I say we, the Tampa Bay Rays. There's an atmospheric scientist on staff, and they're looking at things obviously for when they're not playing in the trop in a controlled setting. But beyond that, which, let's call that hard skills, I keep hearing over and over, and this is, secondhand information, but just how calm and relaxed and fun the atmosphere is in the locker room. I've never had access to it. I'd love to, but just hearing that anecdotally, them not taking themselves too seriously, and my understanding, again, as just a fan, is that was happening even during our July slump, where we ultimately went from first in the AL East to second and so on. So, I think that comes back to the managing style of Kevin Cash and him, maybe, again, outsider here, but my assumption is that he didn't go in during the middle of that slump and start cracking skulls and telling people you suck, you got to do better. So having that culture of let's just, all right, we just played 9 innings. It may have gone our way, it may not have. What did we learn? We live to fight another day. Let's go out tomorrow and do everything we can in our power.
Yeah.
I think, that's directly translatable to not maybe every business, but a lot of businesses, a lot of workplaces.
I think it's fascinating. And, the Kansas City Royals hired Kevin Cash as bench coach, and he's in his first year, and record-wise, it's been a disaster. But I've seen him go about things in ways I've never seen before. I mean, I'll wrap it up with this example. There was one game, I'm walking by him on the field right before the game's about to start, and he says something just joking to me. Most managers wouldn't even talk to you right as the game is starting. He said something like, "Hey, Joel, don't bleep it up." And I'm like, I'm done. My pregame show's over. And then they lost, and we're getting on a plane to travel somewhere, wherever. And so I got to walk by him in first class, and, you kind of put your head down, just lost, don't talk. And he looks at me, he goes, "Hey, I told you not to bleep it up." And I thought, man, this guy's moving on to tomorrow. Like, and it was like, wait a minute, what's wrong with that? We were always taught to do it a certain way. You lose, be quiet, don't say anything. No, go do your thing. So it's a fascinating lesson to be learned, I think. If nothing else in the workplace, don't be afraid to try something new. Right?
Yeah, I think that's it. Take calculated risks.
Yeah. This has been awesome. I knew it would be, and again, I'm glad that Brian Davidson connected us, and you and I will continue these discussions offline as well. But been really insightful, Dr. Russell Clayton. Russell, thanks so much for spending time on Rounding the Bases.
You bet, Joel. Thank you so much for having me.